Hey everyone, how you doing? Welcome to Back in Time Brothers podcast. I am DJ Paulie, and as always, my partner in crime is Lou, my brother.
Hey guys.
So basically, those of you that are just joining us, our show's our journey as brothers, one, but also the music and movies and TV and things that affected our lives and some of the best decades. Obviously, the 80s is one of those, but 70s, 80s, 90s, and even today. That's basically what we're about. Again, thank you everyone that's been checking us out and listening to us. We appreciate you guys. And right now, Lou, what are we going to be doing this week? What are we talking about?
So we're going to do something a little bit different. So the last few episodes, by the way, this is episode 5. So 1 through 4 was pretty much a journey from the 70s, early 80s, and I thought we'd do something different. So in this one, what I want to do is I want to talk about all the concerts that we've been to.
Oh, wow.
And really cover from the 80s and 90s to today, because you and I have been on a lot of concerts separately, but we've also been to a lot together. So we're going to focus on only the ones that we've been on together.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right. So this is going to take us, here we go. Ready?
Let's go.
August 31st, 1984. The first concert that we went to was Missing Persons. And in episode number 1, we talked about that time, 84, 85 in New Jersey. And we talked about Missing Persons as a band that we really enjoyed. So what was cool about this was Missing Persons was a band that I really stumbled upon by mistake. So to give you a little bit of a story, I was in rugby and we're hanging out some guys driving in a car, and this guy who's driving the car, he puts in a cassette and he starts playing it, and he goes, "Oh, I can't listen to this crap, this punk new wave crap." And so he's about to toss it out the window. And I go, "Whoa, hold on." I go, "Here, let me have that." So I took the cassette, and that cassette happened to be Missing Persons Spring Session M. And so that was their big debut album. Great hits on it.
Great.
So that's how I started listening to it. And I think you probably listened to it that way as well.
Well, because of you. Yeah. You were listening to it. So I listened to it pretty much. Yeah. That's how that started. Yeah. That's funny.
Yes. So here we are. So I want you to go ahead and set up where we went to see it.
Okay. And just for those listeners that are kind of younger, a cassette tape is something that had music. And you put it into a cassette deck in your vehicle, and you could listen to songs. It was pretty amazing. It kind of stunk when you had to fast forward and rewind, but otherwise, it was a great concept. Okay, so we took them up to what a cassette was.
All right, nice.
Yeah, so we are in New Jersey, and there's a place called Great Adventure. It is now Six Flags Great Adventure. It was an amusement park, and it had a safari and all that kind of stuff. And I remember us going to somewhere like that was a highlight. That was a big deal for us to go. You know, it was a huge trip, and it was exciting. And obviously, as us being kids, you know, going on rides and things like that. So anyhow, so we go with, it's me, my brother, my mom, and my dad, the 4 of us. We go to Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. And I think we probably went through the safari first, if I'm not mistaken. And then we went to the amusement park. And
so the safari is the type that you drive through, right? You went through, and correct. The animals are just loose. You know, monkeys are jumping on your car. The whole works.
Yeah, trying to kill you, maul you.
Yeah, okay, all right,
that's great. Yeah,
nice.
You know, yeah, good stuff. Now and then, so we're in the amusement park, and they had some, you know, roller coasters, and they had a thing called Lightning Loop, which later on someone died on that thing, fell out. Yeah, but we don't want to talk about negative stuff. I'm sorry. No. You know, we don't want our listeners to take off and stop listening to us. But Great Adventure did have some casualties, unfortunately, that did happen there with a haunted house went on fire and people were. Do you remember that one when the haunted house?
Okay, we are setting up. I mean, my God. Hey, this was supposed to be a fun podcast. Good, happy
well, it was
thoughts.
fun for us because nothing happened to us, so it was good. But anyhow, so this was kind of what Great Adventure was. I guess you could compare it to a big state fair, but you know, always year round, whatever. So we're walking through the park, we're having a good time, everything's all fine and dandy. The 4 of us walk past this kind of like outdoor pavilion, and there was a sign that said "Concert Missing Persons." We walked past it. We couldn't believe it, right? We were like, "What? Missing Persons? Are you kidding me?"
How random is that? We like the band. We're not there to see any concerts.
No, not at all.
But there's a free concert. of missing
Yeah.
persons.
Yeah, it was included with the price of admission, which is even like crazier. Okay, so
Bonus.
so mom and dad take off, and we go into this concert, and I remember it wasn't even packed. There wasn't a lot of people there.
God, maybe a few hundred people. There
Maybe,
was not
right?
many. Yeah, yeah.
Pretty good seats right in front of the stage, pretty much, but back a little bit,
We were back.
and
Yeah.
back, but good view of the stage, when there's only like 50 people in front of you, and they come out, and what? Why don't you tell us what they came out to? Do you have that, Lou?
Well, yeah, I'm a big Missing Persons fan. So
Yes.
just before we dive into that, this band, it was an interesting band because it started from Frank Zappa's band. So
Oh,
Frank Zappa had all these musicians that play with him, and these guys left Zappa to start Missing Persons. So you had Warren Cucurullo on guitar. So Warren, besides playing with Zappa, also played after Missing Persons, played with Duran Duran for a long time, and he's a big
that's
session
correct. Yes.
guitarist. Just he's a killer guitar player. So you had him. Then you had Patrick O'Hearn on bass. Now here's what's funny about Patrick O'Hearn. Patrick O'Hearn, he plays bass and keys, but after he left Missing Persons, he was into new age music. I mean, he was creating all this really synthesizer based moods, where you just kind of veg out. And you remember back in the 80s and 90s, New Age was really popular. Andreas Vollenweider and George Winston and all these artists that came out. So Patrick O'Hearn kind of went on that. So another guy with great chops. So he was really good. Then you had Chuck Wilde on keyboard. But here were the main people. On drums, one of the greatest drummers, Terry Bozzio.
Absolutely.
Who played with Frank Zappa. And another one of those guys were like, God, I wish I could play like him. He's amazing. And then his wife, who he had married like the year before they started the band, was Dale Bozzio. And Dale was a former Playboy bunny. And she was known for kind of like that, like the high pitched sound. It's almost like if you were hiccuping on helium or something like that. She would just shoot up these crazy notes.
Yeah, exactly.
But a great front person
ran away when they heard that.
Oh, I mean, they're just whining. Glass is breaking. Yeah. It's just crazy. So that's the makeup of the band. And these guys were doing the LA new wave sound. So synthesizer, heavy drums, guitar with great beat. So the tour that we saw them on was the Rhyme and Reason tour, which is the second album. And so we already love Spring Session M, great album with Walking in LA, Windows, and all these other great songs. And then Rhyme and Reason came out. Now, Spring Session M, I'm looking at it from the perspective of a drummer. So Spring Session M, Terry played acoustic drums, so a regular drum set. So that sound is pretty predominant throughout the whole album. In the second one, he uses synthesized drums. So, and I forget which ones he used, but so you had these electronic drums that he was playing. Right. And so if you remember the album, The Closer That You Get was the song that comes out with a good steady 4/4 beat, and then a drum riff that goes along with it. And then, great keys and then a good guitar riff. And it's just a great song. And what was great about it was that we love that song off that album, and they opened up the show with it.
Yeah, it was amazing. I can't even tell you this. First of all, being my first concert, being a 14-year-old kid, watching a band that a lot of people didn't even know about, but me and you liked them so much, and then they come out with this song that we just love it, and again, we love the Spring Session M album. Words was on there, and Walking LA, and Windows, and great songs. It was just to see. I think the thing that I remember most about that concert is that Terry Bozzio's drum set was like almost at the front of the stage.
That's
was
exactly
almost like
right
in the front, right?
Yeah, and he positioned himself up front. Yep.
Yeah.
And then he had this black covering on it, like draped over it, cloth. Right. Yeah, and that's the way he liked to play that. But
I remember him commanded. He would stand up on the drums and just like he was. Watching that concert was a big reason. Like for me, it was impactful. Like seeing how they performed and seeing how the 300 people that were there or 500 people that were there, every single one of those people, they had them. They were all in on this. You know what I mean? Like everyone was like, wow, you could have swore there was 10,000 people at that concert the way they played, you know?
Yeah, yeah, the sound was really good. And they just even though there weren't a lot of people there, they played like they were playing to a full house.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was fantastic. And if you guys look on YouTube and look for the US festival, and you'll see Missing Persons played that. And that's essentially the set that they played there is what they played at Great Adventure. So you can kind of see how they did it. And it's just fantastic.
That's a great, with YouTube now, that's great to be able to, for people to go back and see that kind of stuff that maybe that we experienced and kind of can relate to what we saw. So it's kind of cool. And again, it's a cool thing, but it was our first concert together, which was even cooler. So I thought that was so much fun, and we were just rocking out, man. We were having such a good time. And it was, I don't think we stopped talking about that concert for weeks after, like we just kept going and going about it. It was amazing. So.
We did, and then we just kept playing the hell out of that album too. My gosh,
we did, yeah, we did.
Oh,
got sick of that song. I hate it now. No, I'm just kidding. It's like Christopher Cross sailing. Yeah, no, I don't like it.
Oh, hey. So, all right, so that's Missing Persons in 1984. So then another thing that we talked about in the 1984-85 episode 1, was that we're in Patterson. We're on the porch listening to all this mix of music, and then Rat comes on, playing Round and Round. So we see this show in August, the first one, August 31st. Now September 14th at the Meadowlands, we've got Billy Squier with Rat opening up. How cool is that?
Cool, probably one of the coolest shows. I mean, it really was, because there's so much other back stuff to that we could talk about that concert. I remember when you told us about getting the tickets, we took a couple friends of ours that lived in the neighborhood with us, and that were so unaware of what this music was, but they liked that song. Remember, we played that, and they came with us, and they had the best time of their lives jamming at this concert with them. So I thought it was kind of fun. But yeah,
that was because they listened to street rap music and whatever was going on at the time. That's kind of what they do.
Run DMC, and they were listening to Eric B. and Rakim, all the rap songs that were out at the time. Yeah, absolutely.
And so to see these guys banging their heads essentially to Rat was pretty fun.
It was fun, yeah.
So let's talk about that show. So it was at the Meadowlands, and Rat, another kind of LA hair glam metal band at the time, kind of like along the lines of Motley Crue. And they had a great little run there, boy. They had a bunch of platinum albums. And so Out of the Cellar came out. And with the success of Round and Round and some of the other songs off of that, they went ahead and were asked to open up for the Billy Squier tour. Now, Billy Squier was about as hot as ever, because he had the Stroke and In the Dark and all these other Emotions of Motion, things like that were out. So the fact that we were going to get to see two bands that were Rat was hot and Billy Squier was just amazing, we get to see this show. And I remember going to the show, and to me, what I always love about concerts, bro, is that I look forward to how is a band going to open up their show. That is critical.
We have talked about that, and you said that you've told me that's one of your biggest things. And of course, it's the biggest part of the show because it's what's going to draw the crowd in, and trust me, we'll talk about some of those other things later. But if you don't come out with the right song, you potentially could lose your crowd. You lose interest. So it starts off slow, and then you have to rebuild them. If you come out big with a great opening, they're hooked. You got them. They're done. You got the crowd is connected to you.
Yeah, I think going through this list, I'll always remember how these shows opened up. Rat's opening up, and they come out with Wanted Man.
Oh, such a great song, man.
Great song, great video. Wow. So they come out hot and heavy, really hard. And so that set the tone, because that's one of their best songs. They opened it up, and then they did Lack of Communication. Great you think you're also tough. You're in Trouble, and then the great song Back for More.
Love it.
And if you remember, when Rat came out and they had their videos, some of the videos had them doing like these choreographed moves where they
Yes.
almost like danced across the stage in these really kind of neat, and then Juan Crucier, who's the bass player, he'd be rocking back and forth and dancing. So they just had this style that was really different for the time. And I just remember that show, they did like everything you wanted them to do, they did it in that concert.
Yeah, I agree. And you had who are the other ones? Crosby and DeMartini, correct?
Warren
Were the other
DeMartini, Stephen Pierce, yep,
see
Piercy,
and
yep,
and Bobby Blotzer on
and
the
Bobby
drums, of course.
Blotzer,
Blotz, yeah.
yep.
And you're right. They did these things that the three guitar players, or the two guitar players and the bassist, they're doing these choreographed routines almost on stage, and it was awesome. It was a production. It was like a Broadway play, like a musical. It was just like you were hooked. You're watching the show. It was awesome.
Yeah, and so opening bands can be sometimes they're just add-ins, nobody cares about them, and then sometimes it's the big break for a band. And so obviously Rat knew this was a big thing for them, and they just killed it.
Yeah, they did. It was great.
And then, so they played an 11-song set, and of course, the last song they play is Round and Round, which is just a great way to end the show. And I just remember, after seeing that, we're like, oh, God, cannot wait for those guys to start headlining some shows. Yeah. And so that we could see them do a lot more. So that was really cool. And then it was Billy Squier.
Oh, yeah, great show.
So what do you remember about Billy Squier?
The beginning. I mean, obviously, again, it was, we just went and saw this rap performance, and then they're doing this great show, and you're like, wow, okay. And then there's this little null in between time before Billy Squier comes out, and I remember the place goes completely black. It's just completely dark in the arena, and then like these podiums are like little stages on the stage start lighting up, different like pink and purple colors, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And these like little sound effects, like these bump, 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 kind of going.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. And then it's just boom. It just happens, and you're hooked. The song was what, Lou, again?
All Night Long.
All night long.
So what's great is you described it just right, because it had that great, boom, 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 boom. It had that piece, and then all of a sudden it goes into a classic Billy Squier guitar riff, and then the crowd just went nuts, and it was just like, and I remember looking over at the two guys that we brought along, and they were like blown away by it. It was just crazy.
Yeah, it was. I was blown away by it. I was like, holy crap! This was insane. And then it just, again, it brought up the energy. It brought the moment up of first song coming out. The crowd was connected. The crowd was hooked, and the show was a phenomenal show.
But what's interesting about Billy Squier, if you remember, he had those great albums, and then he kind of went away.
Yeah, he disappeared, really, literally. Yeah.
And well, I don't know if literally, but he did stay away. If you remember, I think it was the Rock Me Tonight video, which was really weird, because here you're thinking Billy Squier in the dark, the stroke, cool guitar guy, and Rock Me Tonight, is a keyboard song mainly. And in that video, he's got like a pink t-shirt or tank top on, and he's like doing these weird dance moves on the bed.
Yeah, he was wearing like these, like kind of like those white baggy pants or something, and like a pink shirt, pink tank top or something. It was a bizarre video. It was kind of weird.
It was. And, so I kind of looked into that a little bit. There was so much blowback on him for doing that a lot of his fans stopped after that. And that's what really was the kind of the demise. So really started to go downhill. So it's amazing what a video can do. It can make it or break it. But in this case, because he kind of took a chance, and he took a chance because I think he got some bad career advice. The album wasn't as guitar heavy, the Signs of Life album, as his other ones, and I think that really affected him, and he never really recovered from that.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm sure he's doing very well, though.
Well, you know what? I understand that he lives in New York, and he's got a section, like 20 acres of Central Park, that he takes care of.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, he's
and he wears the pink tank top that he wore in the video.
that's very helpful, so you don't get lost in the green.
Yeah. Well, especially Central Park. And hopefully he's not doing it at night, because that's a bad time to go to Central Park.
That's not a good time. You're right.
Well, all my tourist fans going to New York, do not go to Central Park in the evening. Thank you.
So in 1984, we had two really good concerts within a few weeks of each other, which was really cool.
Yeah, it was good. I didn't realize it was that close apart.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I started looking at some of the dates, you'll see some other ones that were like, wow, we did several shows. That's pretty cool. So then our next concert together, and I know we saw other concerts probably separately between that time, but our next concert together was October 18th of 1985. So a little over a year after the Billy Squier Rat concert. So what's interesting about that is the concert that we go see is Rat Bon Jovi.
Oh.
So in this case, you've got Rat as the headliner and you got Bon Jovi opening up. And so we saw that at the Meadowlands as well. So I think you kind of dug Bon Jovi, right? You were kind of into them.
I was the Slippery When Wet was good stuff. Like those albums, Runaway was a good song. Also, they're being from Jersey boys, which is always also kind of cool as well. But it was that hair rock time. It was those hair bands, and so Bon Jovi was one of my favorite bands back then. Kind of.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
had some great songs back then.
Yeah, so this was a big deal for Bon Jovi getting to kind of open up in their home state. And so they had already released their original album, that had the Runaway on it, right. the self-titled Bon Jovi album. But then their second album was the 7800 Fahrenheit album. So they were supporting that album. And so Bon Jovi opens up, and it's funny. I don't have any real memories necessarily of Bon Jovi when they opened up. Like I don't remember anything special that he did. But I do remember the girls screaming like crazy.
Well, obviously.
Oh, I mean, my gosh.
John Bon Jovi, and then you had what's his name too?
Richie Sambora.
Richie, yeah. So, and they had probably just as high as hair as the girls did were in the audience.
They had more.
It was ridiculous.
Crazy. It was that time though. That's exactly what the guys, the metal guys, were doing. The big hair, the boots, the tight jeans,
tight leather pants.
Yeah, the whole
the belts and handcuffs on their things and weird kind of stuff, scarves around their necks and things like that. But that was the time. That was the time, and that was the fashion back then. Fun fact about Bon Jovi, I met Tico Torres.
Yeah,
a few years later when I was DJing at a club in Seaside Heights.
Well, that's cool. I've got a story as well on that, which I'll say here in a second.
All right.
So, which is good because we're doing a podcast. We should have stories.
But of course, your story is going to outdo mine, of course. But
it might a little bit, just this time.
Yeah, I know. I see how it goes.
So we've got Bon Jovi does their set, and just looking at what they did Tokyo Road to open up, Breakout, Only Lonely, In and Out of Love. So that was out of the 7800 Fahrenheit album.
In and Out of Love. Okay, yeah, good song.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Runaway, and then they do I Don't Want to Go Home and Get Ready. So there's so many better songs now for Bon Jovi. So there wasn't a lot of great ones then, but okay. Right. All right. So after that show, so the reason why we went to the show is because Polygram gave me tickets to go see this show. And part of going to see this show was that we were going to be able to go to the Bon Jovi after party. So me and another friend of mine went down to the party, and down there, they were giving Bon Jovi, and I didn't get to meet him, but I got to see him, and they were giving him the gold record for 7800 Fahrenheit. So it was a record company function down there, and it was pretty neat. And I remember there were people from other bands there, like the girls from Vixen were there. And
Vixen,
yes,
it was hard to tell who were the girls for Vixen, who were Bon Jovi. Right?
It was really close, exactly. and then you had Aldo Nova was there,
man,
and I was right next to him. I didn't realize it. I looked over and I'm like, holy crap, it's Aldo Nova. That was pretty cool. Yeah,
that must have been a fantasy, huh?
I love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, it was
That's a your story is much better than mine. But
But
I did get to talk to Tico, so
yeah, I see. Yeah, so that's a little bit better.
yeah, it was kind of cool.
So because the after party thing went so long, I got to miss the very opening of Rat. And so this is Rat headlining. And I just remember when I got to my seat, I sat down and I looked up the stage and I just saw all these bright lights. And then my ears were just like in pain. That is the loudest
Loud.
show I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, and those of you that care, I was still there at the concert. I was safe by myself as my brother left me, but I was good, so don't worry. But yeah, it was a very loud show, and which could be a reason why we're both kind of our hearing is bad nowadays. Who knows?
A lot too many shows, but that
Wow,
one was
too
really
many.
bad.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I still kind of like that when Rat opened compared to when they headlined. You know what I mean? I kind of like that show.
You know what
a
it
little
is?
bit
It's
better.
because they're hungrier. They want to please more. And here they were up there. They didn't do any choreography. They just played. I mean, they played well. It sounded great, loud, but sounded great. And and what's great was this was the Invasion of Your Privacy tour, and we really liked that album. That was really good. Lay It Down was the big song off of that.
That was a great song.
And so so they had a lot of really really good songs on that, and of course the end, Round and Round. So it was a really good show. It was great to see Rat just a year later headlining the same place where they were opening for. So that's kind of cool to see.
Absolutely, I agree. Yeah. What comes after Rat and Bon Jovi?
So here we go. We're going to go ahead and go to 1986.
So another year.
Okay, this is March, so just maybe 6 months or so.
Okay.
And so it's March 31st, 1986, and it's you and me and my wife. I actually, convinced my wife to come along, and which I don't know how. And we got to go see Rush, and this was
oh man.
So Rush, this is 1986. This is the Power Windows album. And some people didn't like Power Windows. Some people were hardcore Rush fans, 2112 and in those days, Moving Pictures, Signals. Power Windows went a little bit more on the synth way, which Alex Lifeson, who's the guitar player of Rush, really kind of hated going that direction because he liked more of the guitar stuff. But Geddy Lee, who plays, bass and guitar, or I'm sorry, bass and keyboards,
yeah.
and, with his feet, with his hands, with his head. I mean, the guy's amazing. He liked doing all that stuff. But it was actually one of my favorite albums in a way because it was from that time, which had that kind of new wavy sound. They were kind of fitting into that, and I thought it was a really cool album. So we got to go to that tour, and I remember we were just pumped. And once again, it's at the Meadowlands. And I remember we get there and we know that Marillion is going to open the show. First of all, Marillion, it was this British rock band. And they formed in 79. And they were kind of into kind of a progressive, neo-progressive rock band. And they had a singer by the name of
Fish.
So and the reason why his name is Fish, because I just saw his real name. His name is Derek, last name Dick, Dick.
Yeah.
So I go by something else for sure.
Yeah, Richard.
Yes. So Derek Dick, who is Fish, was a Scottish songwriter who was the singer for and he was kind of a cross between like a Peter Gabriel type, Roger Daltrey type singer. And they were popular in England, and they had one breakout song in the States with a video, and that's why they were touring.
Yeah, huge hit. I mean, everyone knew it. It was, it was on MTV. It was all over the place. It was a big hit, and it was what was it's called? What, Kaylee?
Kaylee, yes.
Kaylee, right? Okay,
it's a really nice song.
Is that the one that starts off? Do you remember that one? Right,
that's the one.
Okay, yeah.
So what was funny was, so they come out. And they start playing this. There's like an instrumental song type of thing, and then the song was called "Pseudo Silk Kimono," is what they started out with. And we we just didn't care. And I seem to remember, bro, tell me if I'm wrong on this or not. I thought they were like almost booing them right off the bat. I could
Um,
remember kind of something
yeah,
like that.
yeah, they were the crowd was not impressed with them at all.
Well, they're there to see Rush. And it's
Well, and also they come out and they're playing this weird like instrumental thing. And again, how we talk about how to come out and start a show, they definitely did not come out the right way to start a show. That was
and maybe in the UK, people would have dug that, but it wasn't resonating at all.
no, it wasn't.
So, bro, what do they play next?
So they're playing this instrumental, this Momo thing, whatever pseudo thing, whatever you're talking about, and all of a sudden they come out with their number one hit that they're playing on MTV right now, Kaylee. And so they come out from this instrumental to Kaylee, and then after that's over, that's it. They're done. They start playing this weird stuff after that, and the place goes absolutely insane. Booing them, yelling at them, screaming at them. I think we were yelling at them too.
Oh my God, we were miserable listening. We couldn't wait for them to get off the stage. And what was painful about it was they played an 8-song set.
Oh,
So the only song we know was played on the second song, and we're sitting there having to suffer through this dribble, this weird kind of God, like the Hobbits. If they had a rock band, they'd be playing that kind of music. It was J.R. Tolkien stuff. It was just
it was Gollum, like my precious, just singing and whatever else. It was terrible.
It was terrible.
It was terrible. It was painful and long. And 8 songs. It seemed like eternity that we were there. It was, and everything sounded the same.
Let me tell you something. The breakdown of Marillion and the roadie setting up for Rush was so much better than actually them playing.
Oh God, it was. Yeah, I was just happy with when they were breaking down and getting ready to go, because it was like we knew what was going to happen. Just getting them off the stage was the best thing. And I mean, they were booed the entire concert. Marillion was.
It was awful. It was awful. But you know what? You were ready for Rush. After that, you were so ready.
Oh, anything other than them would have came out. It would have been better.
Yeah, I tell you.
I mean, it was bad. It was painful.
So we talk about how to start a show.
Oh.
And I've been to several Rush shows, but this was my first Rush show.
Yeah, mine as well.
And they're legendary for having those cool little video, the way they start things up, and Jerry Stiller does his little thing, and they do little comedic things and stuff like that. So, bro, I remember you remember this really well. So, you go ahead and describe what you saw.
So, the stage kind of lights up a little bit, and all of a sudden, the Three Stooges music comes on. That's just playing, right? That's just going, right? And so, I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, what? Wow, what is this? And that ended, and then what came on, Lou? What song?
Yeah, so everybody's getting pumped. The video ends, and then all of a sudden you've got Alex comes out and hits that riff for "Spirit of the Radio," and it's over. I mean, you are just transported to Rush World, and you're just and they just, oh my God, they just killed.
I'm just telling you right now, as you're talking about it, I just got goosebumps on my arm. I'm not even kidding you, because that concert, being able to listen to Neil play drums and watch him, and then watching your face, watching him play, because you being a drummer, it was the most amazing. I mean, 3 people playing like there was 20 people on that stage, man. They just killed it, and they outperformed and did everything right. It was perfect.
It's really something how 3 guys can put out so much music, and the musicianship that they show, how the fans just embrace and love them. And what's great is you watch the fans at a Rush show, and they're standing there and they're all air drumming, and they're doing every single lick that Neil's playing. Everybody's doing that.
Yeah, they're all playing YYZ,
It's just, I mean, Tom Sawyer, everybody knows it and they're playing it. It's so fun to watch. And even the women are into it. So Rush has always been known as a guy's band, but the women that are hardcore Rush fans are amazing. They just love it. And through the years, and having seen them, a few times, I think I saw them 4 times. We saw them back when they were young, in their prime. And Geddy was still hitting every single high note at the time. And even though Geddy, later couldn't quite hit them, he really attempted that. And it didn't even matter. People didn't even care
No,
because
it didn't.
they could still play like they were, 20 years old. It was amazing how well they played. And then Neil, later in his life, he would just really hurt after all the shows and he couldn't tour anymore. And of course, him passing this past year was really tough. That was the show. And it was just an amazing performance.
I'm so grateful and thankful that I got to see them play, because loved Rush, but now that, especially that Neil's gone, there's not going to be any other chances to see them play. So I was fortunate enough to see him. You got to see him several times, and definitely one of the most impactful concerts in my life was watching that, because just the showmanship and the professionalism of these three guys was amazing. Amazing.
In this tour, this is where he had the drum set that he'd play one part of the solo with acoustic drums,
Yes,
flip,
yes,
and then he'd go to the electronic drum set, and just amazing. So it was YYZ'd go into a drum solo, and then I remember that night they ended the show with Tom Sawyer. Then they had the encore that they played the 2112 overture and stuff. Just amazing show. And what's funny is that my wife was. Actually, there was four of us at this show, because my wife was, I forget how many months pregnant she was, but so technically I always joke with my oldest son that you went to your first Rush concert in 1986. So
yes, he did. He was there.
So that's Rush Marillion. So then we don't go to another.
Can we just call that just Rush?
I'm sorry, Rush. Yeah, I don't know what that
just brings back nightmares.
Yeah, forget that. So the Rush show of the Power Windows tour, fantastic. So then our next concert is September 1987, and it's a great one, Boston. It's Boston. I had never went to any of the shows for the Boston debut album or Don't Look Back. They always take a long time to do albums, it seems. And so it took a few years, and they finally put out the Third Stage album, which had Amanda on it and some other ones. So once again, I got free tickets. And so here we are at the Meadowlands once again. And it was kind of a weird day. I kind of remember, bro, that we weren't into it.
No, we weren't. We actually we got to the arena. We're parked, and we get out of the car, and we're kind of walking up to the entrance, and we're actually debating about giving the tickets away or selling them. Or something.
Yeah, no, I was going to sell them. I was going to give them away, but
scalping is illegal. I'm just saying. But yeah, we're like right up until like almost the door. We were debating whether to go or not.
It was the weirdest thing. I remember we're like passing cars, passing people, and we're like, do we really want to do this? Do we want to go? I mean, we're talking about Boston. And I don't know what was in our head.
I don't know either.
It was just,
I don't know.
It was weird.
It's a weird thing. Like, and then we finally, finally we say, yeah, let's just go. And we walk in. Did anyone open for them?
There was a band from the Boston area that they kind of gave a break to. I think the band was called Fahrenheit. But we had waited so long to go in that we didn't even see the opening band.
No, we actually walked in, and it was like already like getting ready for Boston to come on. Like,
so they were setting up for Boston. Yeah, we didn't even bother because we knew there was nobody.
Yeah, we debated that long. Oh my God.
So now, once again, talking about how to open a show. And I've seen Boston at least 5 times. And they open the show the same way every time. And it's why it's classic. So I remember we get our seats, and they were good seats.
Great seats on the floor.
Yeah, they were really good seats. Maybe 20 rows, maybe 10 rows, whatever it was.
I think I was going to say probably about 10, 11 rows back.
Okay, so good seats. And we're sitting there, and we're kind of like, let's see what happens. And then they come out, and Boston always opens up with Rock and Roll Band.
Of course.
Classic song. We were just another band out of Boston. And it sets the stage. And so this wasn't all the originals, but this is pretty darn close because you still have Brad Delp singing, and of course, Tom Schultz. And Brad Delp has just a great voice. And I remember just hearing him sing, and we just looked at each other. We're like, holy crap. And we rocked that show.
And they say when the crowd came alive and the lights would come on and everyone would go nuts. And oh my God, it was, I don't even know how we sat out there and debated not to go to this show. Like, how dumb were we for doing that?
Well, listen, I mean, look at the way this show was. They open up Rock and Roll Band. Then they go into Peace of Mind. Then they do Don't Look Back. They did The Journey, More Than a Feeling. And then what they did was they played the entire Third Stage album in its entirety.
That's crazy.
And I just remember them saying, we want to play Third Stage for you. And the albums are actually really good because I love, Cool the Engines is really good. We're Ready. And of course, Amanda. So then after they play the entire album, then they play Hitch a Ride, Foreplay Long Time, Feeling Satisfied, Something About You, and then they always end their show with The Party. And actually, I never liked that song. So I don't like the way they end it, but they know how to start it, and everything in between is fantastic.
Fair enough. You have the right to not like songs too. It's not just me.
Right. That's right. Yeah, The Party, I just don't like that song. But anyway. Okay. So Boston, we almost didn't go to it, and God knows, thank God we did.
Thank God we did. Great show. Amazing. And I remember that, funny thing about that concert is we were like kind of very young ones there. Remember, there was like a lot of older people in that concert.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But I mean,
not like 80-year-old people. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you had,
I was a
30-year-old
kid, Yeah, I was 17.
Yeah, you need 30, 40-year-olds and so on. But, well, and now you go to a Boston show and it's 60, 70-year-olds, and then you got, teenagers there. Because what's great about music, and when you have kids, if you raise them right, they listen to the stuff that you listen to and they appreciate it. And I've gone to well over 300 or more concerts. And I've taken my kids to a lot of those. And there's nothing like watching your kids get excited to get into bands as you did. And that's just great.
And I have not gone to 300 shows. I've only gone to the ones that you're talking about today. No, I'm kidding. And I've not been fortunate enough to take my kids to concerts. But my daughter is a huge Queen fan. She loves Queen, which is great. She actually loves watching the Live Aid part with we watch that together, and she loves it. So
that's great.
That's again another thing that you get to share with our kids.
It's awesome. All right, so let's move on. We've got after Boston, our next concert together was June 26, 1988.
Okay, I had just turned 18 years old just after graduating high school. Look at that.
Nice. Do you remember what that was?
Oh man, was it Queensryche?
Nope. It was a big event.
Oh, of course.
5 bands.
Of the Monsters of Rock at the Giant Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. Monsters of Rock in 1988. This was our first one that we went to. Well, our first and only one that we went to. But the main reason why we went to that Monsters of Rock was why?
Van Halen, baby.
Absolutely.
That's the only reason I went.
Oh, there's so many other good bands on there too. But,
after being at the show, I realized that. But I wanted to see Van Halen. That's the only reason. That was Van Halen with Sammy, of course. That was right after 5150. OU 812, I think, was coming out.
That was That was in support of that album. That's absolutely right. So let's set this up a little bit. So this is like almost an all-day affair. I remember that we got there at like noon or something like that. And it played till 11 o'clock at night. So it was like a 12-hour extravaganza. Giant Stadium was packed. Packed. Oh my gosh. So here's the lineup. So you had Van Halen, who was headlining. Then you had Scorpions before them. Then you had Dokken, Metallica, and then you had a band called Kingdom Come that opened up. Yep. So do you remember Kingdom Come?
I couldn't tell you one song of theirs. Okay. I don't remember a whole lot about them, honestly. Just what we've talked about a little bit, but you seem to know a lot more about them than I do. That's for sure.
Well, I remember when the debut album came out, and I think it was February of '88. And we did a lot of promotion with Kingdom Come at Sam Goody when I worked at Sam Goody. And I just remember that album. And they had a really big hit with the song called Get It On. And they were kind of I'll say it, they were a Led Zeppelin ripoff.
Okay.
I mean, they Their guitar sound were ripping off Jimmy Page. He tried to sound like Robert Plant. So they had 3 hits off that album. And because they were doing so well, they got asked to go ahead and support the Monster Rock Show. So they came out, and the crowd was into it, and they played well, and they played their hits, and Kingdom Come actually did pretty well. And it's funny is they've released a ton of albums, but I don't know anything about them anymore. But their big thing was that they ripped off Zeppelin, and they caught a lot of crap for it. And even Jimmy Page was saying, at some point, it's nice when someone tries to emulate you, it's a compliment. But when they rip you off and actually play their same riffs, that's that's annoying. So anyway, that's
it was Kingdom Come.
Kingdom Come. So they opened up, they played, and then Metallica, obviously. And today, everybody knows Metallica, legendary band. At that time, when Metallica came out, they were usually a little bit harder than the stuff I normally listen to.
So that was kind of like Injustice for All, right?
It hadn't released yet. So this is right before Injustice for All.
So this was Master of Puppets then. They had
Ride the Lightning was another one.
Battery was another one on Master of Puppets album. They were hard because Battery, I remember, was like a really almost like a speed metal song. It was like just
most of them stuff. So they had Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, and Master of Puppets. Those are the 3 albums that they had before Injustice for All, which had started them on really being a little bit more commercial, not a ton commercial, but when they started to.
That's what one was on, right? Injustice for All.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, great song. One of my faves actually from Metallica.
So Metallica, I just remember I'm like, holy crap, this is Metallica. And I was expecting just kind of chaos and just people really going hardcore. And I remember them playing, and then I thought, wow, these guys are good. They commanded the stage. And I think it was For Whom the Bell Tolls when they played that song. And the crowd, they started that huge mosh pit.
Oh my God.
It was huge.
Yeah, it was the whole stadium, the whole football field.
It was like it had to be like 50 yards wide in diameter, and people were just flinging themselves into it. And it was just like, wow, because I had never experienced a mosh pit before. And that was the first time I saw that live. And I thought, holy crap.
I've seen a couple of them, and that one by far was the most insane one I've ever seen in my life. But I did see Metallica years later, and the same thing. They had another just huge mosh pit. So a lot of their older stuff caused that to happen. Not so much the newer stuff. They became more commercial, a little bit more mainstream. Their albums and stuff.
Yep.
So, but
it's funny you mentioned Battery. That's the last song they played on that.
I love that song. It's a great guitar. Kirk plays some great guitar on that, and then it's just a really. It starts off like really nice guitar, like kind of almost like classical guitar, and then it just gets really hard and like
I remember
goes nuts. Yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah.
So then after that we have Dokken. And I was a Dokken fan. I wasn't sure if you were or not.
Well, you were a Dokken fan. This is in North Dakota, though, right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, that's what I kind of remember Dokken in North Dakota. Rugby days.
Oh yeah,
but. I like some of their stuff. It wasn't like I was a huge fan, but I did like some of their stuff. It was okay.
Tooth and Nail, Into the Fire, Dream Warriors, Alone Again. I mean, those are just some of the classic songs.
Dream Warriors.
Yeah, from the Freddy Krueger movie.
Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street.
So Dokken, I just remember, number one, Don sounded great. Don Dokken, the lead singer, and George Lynch, who is just a sick guitar player. Just a great show, and I think a lot of people got into that, and it was really good. And then Scorpions.
I like Scorps.
And the Scorps, they had released the live album, and I forget if it was before or after this one. I think it was probably before. And I just remember knowing that live album. And then when I saw this show, it was like hearing that album. And it's funny because me and my son saw the Scorpions a year or two ago. They still sound fantastic. He still has that voice.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
Amazing. Yeah, so Scorpions, let's see. So they had Blackout, Big City Nights, Bad Boys Running Wild, Can't Live Without You, Coming Home, The Zoo. They end with Rock You Like a Hurricane and Dynamite. Just Just a killer
Good.
show. And once again, those guys know how to start show, how to just command the audience. And the sound was fantastic. And who could complain? You could have ended the show there and been satisfied.
Yeah, I agree.
But then we had Van Halen to go.
The reason we were there.
It's always about, okay, are you a Van Halen fan or a Van Hager fan, right? That's like always people talking about that. So obviously we grew up on Van Halen and David Lee Roth. Never had the opportunity to see David Lee Roth in his prime when he played with the band, but I've seen enough video and stuff. And listen, Dave's a great frontman, but he tends to not sing all the words to the songs. He tends to just kind of showboat a little bit. Great front man, but sometimes I don't appreciate the fact that he doesn't really try to sing a song completely. And that drives me nuts. I like people to sing the song.
I agree with you.
So when David Lee Roth left and Sammy joined the band, and we saw that 5150 album, and we saw, remember the video we watched of the
what was it?
Van Haven or New Haven?
No,
New Haven.
New Haven.
That's what it was.
New Haven, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Great concert. Actually, I think Eddie was wearing the same tank top as Billy Squier at Pink One.
He was in that, I think, right?
Yeah, so I guess they went shopping.
It worked for Eddie. I guess it didn't work for
Billy. Yep. But yeah, that was a great concert. And I again, big Sammy Hager fan. I think what he brought to Van Halen was he brought that guitar. Eddie was able to play keyboards, and it brought a little bit more range to the band, I thought.
By far. Listen, I love the guitar-driven early music. And you're talking about Love and Unchained and
Cradle Will Rock.
Mean Streets. Yeah, I mean, all these great riffs. But maybe this is just because it was a little bit more pop rock, but it still had some edge. And Sammy's a rocker. Sammy puts on a great show, and I really appreciate the fact that Sammy sings, and at that time he was singing great. He sang all the words to everything. He could play lead as well, and him and Eddie could jam together. It did bring about a whole different sense of musicianship, and it filled up the sound a lot more. So I really appreciated it a lot.
Absolutely. Me too. I agree.
Yeah, so they opened up with AFU Naturally Wired. Then it went to Summer Nights.
Oh, good song.
And then one of my favorite Sammy Hagar songs, There's Only One Way to Rock. Love that song. Then they do Panama, Running with the Devil, Why Can't This Be Love, Mine All Mine, You Really Got Me, When It's Love, Eagles Fly, I Can't Drive 55, Best of Both Worlds, Black and Blue, Ain't Talking About Love. And then they do a couple of covers, Superstition and Rock and Roll. But yeah, it was a great night. It was a fantastic show.
Great show. Great show.
So that's Monsters of Rock. So now we go to what I think you and I have talked about, and I've seen a lot of shows. As far as the shows that you and me went to, it's probably a top 3 show.
I agree. I already know what you're talking about. So yes.
Yep. So here it is. We saw Monsters in June of '88. So now we go to September of '88. Once again at the Meadowlands, and it's a big show because number one, it's the return of Def Leppard. And the Hysteria album, which is the one that sold the most for them. Great album. Tons of hits off of it.
Right after Rick's recovery, right? Playing drums.
Yeah, so Rick, he lost his arm in '84. The band took from '84 to '87 to really write this album. And they had to take a break because Rick Allen had to learn how to play with his feet and work with only one arm, and they had to work on getting these triggers for the different sounds of the drum that we would have played with his left hand. Just amazing that the band pulled through and got to that stage. So everybody's excited to see you got a one-arm drummer, and you've got one of the great rock and roll bands of all time, Def Leppard. And this is Def Leppard, the original group. This is the whole lineup that we're seeing. So when we talk about the way to open a show, this is one of my favorite ways to open a show of all time.
So let's talk about who opened for them.
When you talk about going to see a show, and what was cool about the show was this was a show that was in the round. You had the circular stage, which
That's right. Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Every seat was a good seat.
Oh my God, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
So I remember we got to the concert a little bit late. And we get into our seats and we knew who was going to play, but we didn't know much about them. I had seen some videos on MTV with them and I had sold their music before, but I wasn't necessarily a fan or knew a lot about their music. So the band we're talking about is Queensryche. Queensryche is a Seattle-based band and kind of a progressive heavy metal kind of band. And the tour that they were doing was the Operation Mindcrime tour. Now, Operation Mindcrime, just so you guys know, it is probably a top 10 album for me because for just pure rock and just the way the music's written and performed, it's just an amazing album. And I've seen Queensryche or Jeff Tate, I think 5 times as well. Even though they've kind of broken up and part of Queensryche went one way and Jeff Tate did his own thing. But I love this band. And so we go ahead, we pull up, we get in our seats, and Queensryche is already in the middle of their set. I think we might have missed like a couple, like three songs or something like that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yep.
We kind of walked into the middle of already going. So
and so in hindsight, that is the thing that we're like, how did that happen? How do we let that happen? Because first of all, you're in the round, and we had great seats. We were, I don't know, once again within the first 10 rows, maybe even closer. And you've got Scott Rockenfeld, who's the drummer. He's got these really cool drums that have these chains wrapped through them and in the cymbals. And he's just got this really badass looking drum set. And you've got heavy guitar sound. And then you got Jeff Tate. They're all wearing black leather. And Jeff Tate is just commanding the stage. And he has one of the great voices of all time in rock. And I just remember we were like, what is this? I'm like, holy crap. And I think what blew us away was that even though it was kind of hard stuff, it was played so well.
Yeah.
And melodic.
I became a Queensryche fan after that concert.
Oh,
without a doubt. It was amazing.
And, and I look at that set, they opened up Queen of the Reich, then they went into Anarchy X, Revolution Calling, Operation Mindcrime, Speak, Spreading the Disease, Take Hold of the Flame, Breaking the Silence, I Don't Believe in Love, and then they end with Eyes of a Stranger. So this was all before the Empire album, which was a real big commercial hit for them. And that set alone is money every day. Oh my gosh, what a great set.
Yeah, that was an amazing concert, those guys.
And then we get Def Leppard after that.
Yeah.
So how cool is that? So I remember working at Sam Goody. There'd be some nights where we'd have to stay late to stock shelves and process shipments. And I remember playing the Hysteria album. So when you're closed, you can just crank, and all the Sam Goodies had great stereo systems in there. We had these cool either Polk Audio or some other type, I forget which other type of speakers we had, and we would just crank it. And I just remember listening to Hysteria thinking, wow, the guitar sound, the vocals, everything was just fantastic on this album. Everything was so catchy.
I can't agree more with you, man. I'm telling you, it was a important album in my high school, my senior year. Like, that Hysteria album was insane. There were so many hits off of that.
Yeah.
So many.
So here we are. We're getting all pumped up to watch this show. It's in the round. And I remember they had the entire stage covered in
like a black drape, a curtain.
So the whole thing is draped in a curtain. And it was, if I remember right, I thought it had the Hysteria album logo on it, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
No, it might have.
Yeah,
I don't know. I remember the curtain. I thought it was a black curtain, but you could be right.
What was cool is, so you've got the curtain, and then you start hearing this pre-recorded music stuff that's starting to kind of get you pumped up. And then all of a sudden you hear, what was the classic line? Oh, no. It was Dirty. They did a Dirty Harry thing. That's what it was. It was a Dirty Harry thing.
Oh yeah. Go ahead and make my day, or
yeah,
feel lucky,
like
or something like
right,
that. Right.
Yeah. And then you hear welcome to my show. And then all of a sudden they go into hear the guitar that goes in. Yeah. So the song is Stage Fright.
Oh
If anybody
man.
doesn't know that song, go ahead, go on iTunes, YouTube it, whatever. Listen to the beginning of that song. And so they start playing that song, but the curtain doesn't come down yet. So they're into the song a little bit. And then there's a part where the drums really hit hard. And then all of a sudden the whole curtain comes down and there's Def Leppard playing. That was just such a memorable opening to a show.
Another chills moment on my arm.
Right?
Thank you.
Right?
Yep. Oh my God. Insane. Oh my God. I have to go after we're done here with our show. I'm going to have to go watch it.
Go YouTube that concert, because if you can find that, it's fantastic.
Oh, you definitely should.
And that was, once again, that had the entire original lineup with them. So after that, not too long after, it was Steve Clark that passed away, their one guitar player. But it's funny, I got to see Def Leppard maybe 3 years ago. And it's hard to watch that show. They were good, don't get me wrong. But when you see Def Leppard in the prime, you see Joe Elliott, who's able to hit every single note in his prime. And just the vocals, the harmonies were so spot on. What you heard on that album, they recreated every song almost to perfection.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was almost like you were listening to the album.
Just tremendous.
Except, just the live version of it is insane. And of course, Pour Some Sugar on Me, some hits on there, and Love Bites, I believe, was on there. Kind of like a ballad they did. Some, Hysteria, obviously, but some great songs off that album. Plus all the other songs that in their library, Fooling and Pyromania and great songs like that. And they mastered them. They mastered everything that they did.
Yeah, and so
they really did.
And it was great. So they end the show with Rock of Ages and Love Bites, and then their encore's Photograph. I mean,
oh wow,
yeah,
that's
just amazing show.
That's a Unter Gleben Glauben Globen. That's what I say.
So there you go. That is Def Leppard Queensryche, one of our favorite shows of all time.
I agree 100%.
So then this is September of 88. So now we're going to go ahead and go a year later. We're going to go October of 89.
Okay.
All right. And this was kind of a cool time for us because this is the first time we ever went to a concert and we took our parents.
Oh, yeah. And the only one I've ever done.
Absolutely. And the reason why we took our parents, and once again, I got tickets being part of Sam Goody, and I got 4 tickets. And the reason why I wanted to invite my dad and mom to it is because it was a band from their day, and a band that was having a resurgence and still plays today, and is probably in the top 3 rock bands of all time. And that was the Rolling Stones at Shea Stadium.
Oh, man. Steel Wheels Tour? Is that what it was?
It was the Steel Wheels Tour. And I love that album, too. It was one of my favorite albums.
Great album. Shea Stadium, open field, open baseball stadium. And again, great seats down on the field level. And we had off to the side, not in the middle of the stage, but off to the side a little bit.
Yep.
But great seats. And it was so fun being at that concert with our parents. That was so cool because Dad was just great. He was getting into it so much. But before we jump into that, before we even get into Rolling Stone, let's talk about who opened up for them.
This was a hard-edged band that was playing. And at the time, the band was Living Colour. And everybody probably remembers the video from Cult of Personality. Just a great album. And
that was awesome.
I really love Living Colour. They had just a great guitar player in Vernon Reid. Corey Glover was the vocalist. He had a great voice.
Good voice.
Yep. And then I forget the drummer's name. It was Will Calhoun, and then the bass player was Muzz Skillings. And they were a cool band, and the music was catchy, and they had a couple of different songs. Called Personality was the big hit for them. And so they were touring in support of that. And so they performed with the Rolling Stones throughout their tour, I think. And I just remember that our parents didn't get into that at all.
No, but we did.
you and I
Yeah,
were like, we were standing up on our seats. Our parents were kind of just sitting there going, no, whatever, you know. It was pretty funny. It's like, I don't get this music, but they played well. And that was a lot of fun. So that was the opening band. And then, so the anticipation for seeing the Rolling Stones is huge. Place is packed. It's, celebrities are there. Anybody in New York was there. They played several nights. And they played, I think, 2 different periods of time. They did early October and late October, I think, for Shea Stadium, because there's so many people that want to go to it. And I remember how psyched our parents were for this. And I remember when I asked them to go, I wasn't even sure if they were really going to go. And they just jumped at the chance to go.
Oh, you'd be stupid not to jump on that chance. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, but so it was really cool. So it was a lot of fun. It was fun being able to take my parents there. And I remember we sat there and the music starts going. So this is, once again, how do you open a show? Well, Rolling Stones do it a great way as well. And what they did was they started off on the Steel Wheels album. There's this song called Continental Drift, which has like this kind of a Middle Eastern kind of feel to it. And it's got this real drum beat stuff. So it starts playing and then it progressively goes faster and faster. And then it stops abruptly. And then it goes fast, 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 fast. And then it stops. And then all of a sudden, you've got all these explosions. I see the explosions and I look at my dad. My dad wore glasses like we do. And I remember seeing the explosions in his glasses. And I remember seeing the smile on his face because he was blown away. And then all of a sudden, Start Me Up cranks out. Here comes Keith Richards just jamming, and then Mick Jagger comes up, and I just seeing the joy in my parents' face. It's like how I watched when my kids saw their first concert and seeing their faces. That's the way it was with watching our parents do that, which was really cool.
Yeah, it was. Seeing Dad standing on the chair, just kind of like rocking out, like. Yeah, and our dad was short, 5'6", whatever.
Yeah.
He's standing on a chair and he's rocking like a teenager, just having a good old time. And Mom was going, having a good old time. And it was something that we shared as a family together, which was kind of cool. And only concert that we ever did with our parents as a family, all of us together. It was definitely a memorable experience and it was a great concert. And again, I know a lot of people can say they never got to see the Rolling Stones. I can say I did, and I'm lucky for that. I've been pretty fortunate in some of the shows that I've seen, that we've seen, So cool stuff.
And that's the last tour that Bill Wyman, the bass player, played. So we had that's the original, because they've had some other people. Brian Jones, of course, passed a long time ago. But the classic lineup that most people know, with Ronnie Wood and Keith Richards and Charlie Watts and Mick Jagger with Bill Wyman, that's what people know. And that's the last time they played, is on that tour. So it was really good to be able to see that.
It was great to see Keith Richards since he's been dead since '78. So
that guy, he doesn't stop, man. He's amazing. He is amazing. Yeah. And they sounded phenomenal. Mick Jagger just was running up and down. The guy's endless, boundless energy. It's unbelievable. So,
yeah.
But yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, really good stuff. So I think we'll just kind of touch upon a couple of these. So then the next one we went to was, so it's funny, October 11th, we're seeing the Stones at Shea and with Living Color. But then like a couple weeks later, October 27th, we're going to the Ritz. So, and this was the new Ritz. The original Ritz, they had moved it, and they moved it to a place called the New Ritz. We got to see a band that they'd been around a long time, but they were really kind of playing some obscure, kind of weird stuff. But then they put out this album, the Mother's Milk album, which was a really, really good album. And we got to see them support that album. And the band was
the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, it just crazy. And I remember Knock Me Down and Higher Ground. Those are the 2 big hits off that album. But that was something that we were not ready for.
No, I definitely wasn't. It was kind of like my first experience like in the New York scene. And then seeing this band. And I mean, and they rocked. They were jamming and they sounded great. And we're kind of sitting there watching it. And then there's a moment in the show when I think the lights went out. Isn't that correct, Lou?
Well, what they do is this. You're talking about when they leave the stage and then they come back. Yeah. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, that's towards the end. Yep.
Yeah, they came back and they were naked.
with socks on their privates.
With socks under privates, yes.
Yeah. So Red Hot Chili Peppers is something you have to. I don't know that they do that anymore, but back in the day, I remember I was told the record label said normally we take you back to meet the band, but we can't do that because they might spit on you. That's what they said. So that's why I'm like, yeah, I think I'll pass meeting Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's okay, thank you.
So we lost that opportunity. There we go.
Not our doing.
Getting spit on.
That's right. That would have been kind of cool.
Thank you, Flea.
So then our next show wasn't until 91, July of 91. And this was neat because then we got to see Queensryche on the Empire Tour, Building Empires Tour, and they got to headline that. And that was a different show. And I remember Suicidal Tendencies opened up for them, which just kind of a thrash heavy LA thing again. That wasn't my thing. I wasn't into that.
Mine either.
Yep.
Mine either. Yeah.
Yep. But Queensryche went ahead and they played all the great songs from the Empire album, Best I Can, Empire, Jet City Woman, things like that. But then they went ahead and played the entire Operation Mindcrime album from start to finish. And then I don't know if you remember what the encore was, the last song they played, which is different. So we talk about how to start a show. This is a different way to end a show. But do you remember what the song was?
I don't.
Silent Lucidity.
Oh, wow. That's okay.
Isn't that because if anybody doesn't know what Silent Lucidity is, it was a great kind of a rock ballad type song that was, a huge hit for Queensryche. And so they end the show with this. And I remember that it was just, it had like soft lighting and it was really dramatic. It's an epic kind of song, but it was weird to end the show on almost like a very soft way. And I remember kind of leaving it like, I want to go out rocking. And that wasn't the way to. So just an interesting way to do that. But the crowd was fantastic, and Queensryche was fantastic on that show.
And everyone went home and went to sleep right after that. So that was great. So good on them for that.
Yeah, I guess they could kind of set you up for that. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's been a long night. Good night, everybody. Then our next show, man. So I think the reason why we didn't go to a show is because then I went up and I was living up in New Hampshire.
You were.
So the next one we went to was in 94, July of 94. And this is kind of one of those epic bands that they don't do as many tours, but we had the chance to see them, and that was Pink Floyd.
Yeah, that was an interesting show.
Silent Lucidity would have worked for that as well.
It would have.
Because that was a kind of a mellow show.
Well, that too. And when we got into the stands, we were sitting there, and I think that was at the Giant Stadium, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it?
It was Giant Stadium, correct? Yeah.
And so we're out, we're outside, and all of a sudden, I would say before the show even started, all you smelt was, that green lettuce. That's all you smelled. And
wowie. Yes.
Everyone was like, whoa. Everyone was just nice chill mode. Everyone was chilling.
It really was. This is just David Gilmour with, I think, Nick Mason, and I forget who else was in there. But there's no Roger Waters at this stage, of course, because they broke up a while back. But I just remember the sound of Dave Gilmour's guitar was unbelievable, just piercing, just beautiful, and he sang really well. It was just a great show, great stage show. They had all kinds of different effects.
Yeah, these giant pigs on stage.
Pigs, yeah. I mean, just
kinds of stuff.
And then that plane that came across and kind of exploded or something. They had all these cool. Yeah, it was neat.
And I'm not a huge Pink Floyd fan, but I do like a lot of their music. But so there was some stuff, honestly, I did not know of Pink Floyd when I was at that concert listening to them. And I was like,
sure.
I didn't even know what that was.
And I knew, this was off the Division Bell, which is actually a pretty good album. So I like hearing the new stuff along with, they played all their hits. There were times where you get a little sleepy at that show, but and that's probably because, and then I remember we were really hungry afterwards.
Well, I think we went to the diner and got some disco fries.
We had to.
We had the munchies like you wouldn't believe. Yep.
So anyway, it was in the air. There's nothing you could do about that one.
In the air tonight.
Oh, okay. So that's 94. So then I moved away and so on, and we didn't get to go to shows together. But
no, I mean we all kind of doing our lives and, got married and kids and, different states and moving away and doing things. And then we end up, back in North Dakota again. And then you move and you're gone and I'm here. And then an opportunity comes. I'm like, hey, I'm going to come down and see you. And you surprised me with this one.
So our last show that we went together was in February of 2016. And so now what happened was, bro, was I convinced you to come down because I go, we got to go see them. If you remember.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
So this is really obscure, but this is once again kind of going back to some of our 80s roots. So there was a band in the 80s that had been around a long time. They've been around since the 70s, but they had a period around 83 when they released an album that had, and it was actually produced by David Foster. I mean, David Foster, which is weird that you think this band was working with David Foster. But they released an album. I think it was Outside Inside, I think was the name of the album. But anyhow, it had the hit and it had a great video. It was She's a Beauty. And the band I'm talking about, The Tubes.
The Tubes.
So the Tubes were playing in the Talking Stick Resort in Phoenix. And I convinced my brother to fly down from North Dakota, come down for the weekend, and I'd treat him to the concert and stuff. And as goofy as this show was, we had a blast because it was just you and me getting together.
Yeah, it was. It was fun. I mean, I honestly probably only know 2 songs from the Tubes. And thank God they didn't do a Marillion and come out and do She's a Beauty right away, or I would have went home. But yeah, we came down, we went down, we had dinner before the show, and then we went to the show and we had good times, and it brought back some really good memories and really obscure concert, really kind of weird. He's a weird individual, the lead singer. What's his name?
Yeah, it's Fee Waybill. And so
That's it, Fee.
His original name was, I think, John Waybill. And the reason why he was called Fee was he had a nickname. His nickname was Fiji because he had this wild hippie hair. And they used to call him Fiji. And then he became Fee Waybill. So
I thought maybe he did shows for Fee. I know that was weak. I'm sorry. The comedy part's getting weak. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, I think we're running out of steam here. It's been a long episode.
We might be. It's been a long episode, but a fun one.
But yeah, so it was weird because the Tubes are known for being back in the day. They in the 70s used to do some really elaborate stage shows, and they were almost like a Rocky Horror participation. People would come to the shows, and celebrities would come in, and they would take part in this stuff. And their big thing was back in the day was their first big hit was White Punks on Dope, which is essentially a song about snobby Hollywood type kids, stars kids, and how they act and stuff. So that was his big thing, and he used to come out and he'd dress up as the character Quaalude, with these fake boobs and high heels and big hair and the whole thing. And so he'd come out like that. And then he'd throw flour into the crowd, act like it was cocaine or heroin or something. And he'd just do all these wacky things. So that's the way he's always been. He's done these very elaborate shows. So when we went to see the Tubes, we didn't know what to expect because we'd never been to a show. I just know that there was 3 or 4 songs that I really liked from the Tubes. And I thought that it was an inexpensive show and it was nearby. So he comes out with this kind of trench coat. So a trench coat and then the fedora hat or something like that.
Yeah. Almost like an old detective kind of.
Exactly.
Like a detective, yeah.
And they start doing these old time songs like Frank Sinatra stuff, Town Without a Pity, a Gene Pitney song, just all this really old stuff. And it was just weird. It's like you were watching this film noir performance. And then all of a sudden,
I don't even want to go. You go ahead and say I can't even.
So the lights are really dark. This is like a Red Hot Chili Peppers moment.
Yeah,
all of a sudden, he comes out and he's naked. Now, the lights are not on his private area, but everything else you can see. And he then performs a song that way. And we just kept looking at each other like, what have we done to ourselves here?
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I was like, should we go now or
Oh
what are
my
we
God.
doing?
Well,
And I think
yeah.
we almost did talk about leaving. I think
There was a period. It's like, boy, if it doesn't get better soon. But then all of a sudden, they started playing their '80s stuff, and they started playing their hits. What's interesting, and I didn't know this, so the Tubes, they have a really good drummer, Prairie Prince. The Tubes came out. They came out of that San Francisco scene. A lot of the guys were from Phoenix, but they had moved to San Francisco. So Prairie Prince, after he was with the Tubes, he played for Jefferson Starship for a lot of years.
really.
But more importantly, here's a trivia that I did not know. Okay. Prairie Prince was the first drummer for Journey.
Really?
He is a founding member of Journey. Him, Neil Sean, Greg Raleigh, and then Ross Valerie. But he quit after 4 months with the band and never recorded.
Wow.
Isn't that weird? Oh my gosh.
Probably kicking himself now. Jeez.
Well, and he's had a great career, and he's still a great drummer. And he does a lot of session works, and he's played for Todd Rundgren and Richard Marx and a lot of great players besides playing with the Tubes. But I thought that was such an unusual, kind of neat little tidbit that I always thought Ainsley Dunbar was the first drummer, and then Steve Smith after that. And that's true. He's the first one that recorded with them, but it was Prairie Prince. So there you go.
Huh,
little trivia.
That's a nice trivia.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, and of course, then they ended the show. I think was with they do "She's a Beauty" and then "Talk to You Later," it's one of my favorite songs. And we ended up, I think, enjoying that show. At the end,
the beginning was a little bit weird, and then it got better for sure. And again, it's a lot more with just the two of us hanging out together, having a good time. We could sit there and look at paint dry. We would have fun. So it doesn't take much for us. We enjoy each other's company, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. I think I almost apologized. Sorry to make it go to that, but when I think about it, it was still a good time. And then it's funny. Then me and my wife were on one of the '80s cruises, and the Tubes were on there, and so we actually got to speak to Fee Waybill, and we told him that we went to that show. And I remember telling him, "It says, I go, Fee, this show was great," because he did nothing but '80s stuff, and it was a great show. And he still did the weird stuff where he dresses up, but not the old time, detective thing. And I told him about that, and he goes, "Yeah, I love doing that stuff." Really nice guy. And I just remember he's really tall. And I remember when I shook Fee's hand, he almost crushed my hand. I could not believe how strong he was for a guy in his late 60s. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about being a private dick, huh?
Oh! He was cool. So that was a lot of fun. So
that's pretty cool.
So man, we just did a special double episode almost on our concert.
I know, just on concerts, and that's just the ones that we went together. If we did the ones that you went to, we would be here for about a week and a half talking about all your concerts. But
yeah,
you've gone to so many.
It'd be fun to talk about my favorites and stuff.
Well, you know what? Maybe that's something we can do. We could do maybe your top 5, or the top 5 concerts that you liked, or something like that you went.
So hard.
It might be hard. That might be a hard list to compile for you, but because you've gone to so many concerts, you've seen Billy Joel, and you've seen Foo Fighters, Queen, and you've been very fortunate to see some of these bands.
Paul McCartney. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean those are huge. And you got to see what's his name too? Guy who plays Wolverine.
Hugh Jackman, yeah.
That's gotta be number one for sure.
I took my wife to Hugh Jackman. We left after halfway through the show. My wife's a Hugh Jackman fan. She goes, "Okay, I've had enough."
Well, but I could see her doing that too, though. She's like,
when it's done, it's done. She could be watching a show, and it's 10 minutes from the end of the show. I'm tired. I'm done. She don't care. She misses the ending, no matter what it is.
As long as I know that she's been that way. So yeah, and it's hilarious about that. Oh, with her. Yeah, I started watching this series. I watched 2 episodes. I'm done with it. I give up. I'm over it.
Jeez.
It's hilarious.
Oh man. Well, bro, hey, it's been fun reminiscing.
Hey, a good show. A little bit different than what we normally do, but it was nice to kind of touch on those episodes, those concerts, and kind of relive some of that and give me some goosebumps on some of them. That was great, man, because some of those shows were fantastic. So it was always a good time, man.
Absolutely. Now, I know that we've made some changes to the website and Facebook, and we really want you guys to reach out to us. So, bro, I think we have a new Gmail address that people could email us, right?
We do. We have an email address that we'd love for you guys to reach out to us. It's backintimebrothers@gmail.com. We're also on Instagram at backintimebrothers at Instagram. You can get us there. And of course, our Facebook page, which we'd love for you to visit us, which is Back in Time Brothers at Facebook. It's all over on Facebook. You can definitely reach out to us, private message us, send us right on our wall. We're on Apple Podcasts.
And we're also going to be on Spotify soon, too.
Which is awesome. And we're also on YouTube as well. So we do appreciate all your support, guys. Thank you so much. For those of you that are giving us feedback and sharing our podcasts and things like that, we do appreciate you guys, and we thank you for that. We'll definitely have some more episodes coming up. We got some plans for some new things. And if there's something that you want us to talk about, or something that a time or a concert or a movie or something like that, reach out to us. We'd love to definitely touch base on some of that stuff with you guys.
Sounds good, bro.
All right, man. Well, everyone, thanks. Thanks for listening to Back in Time Brothers podcast. I am Paulie, and this is my brother Lou, and we enjoy doing this for you guys. You guys have a great night, and thank you.